Hi everybody and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today I want to give you a review as to where we're at because this guitar is from the pit. I'm telling you, I have made almost 30 guitars, not quite, and I have done a lot of armrests. This was the most difficult armrest I have ever done. I don't understand why this thing really became so incredibly difficult. This armrest in here I did 4 times. I had to take it apart and redo it, and that's why you haven't seen me. I've been working so hard on this thing because at one point I seriously considered doing one of two things. Putting a hammer through the top just for the sheer satisfaction of my frustration, or sawing the guitar in half and putting it in the garbage. My wife talked me into, no, you can't do that because on your channel you encourage people to try new things and to persevere and to work and keep at something. She was right. And so I decided, okay, I'll persevere and I'll keep working at it. So I did, and I have managed to get it to the point where we're pretty well there. You'll see it, and I'll show you all the details and tell you about this. I've got a couple of photos I want to show you. One of the things I did in doing the armrest, up in here where the shell is located, what I do is I put 2 small pieces of wood, very tiny, and they're tight against the filler instead of the shell. I have some silicone, which is the width of the shell, and I wrap it around there. One of the problems I found when I got working on this thing, I didn't have enough purfling. That meant driving about an hour and 15 minutes one way, hoping they had purfling, and then coming back again. And I wasn't about to do that for a couple of small pieces of purfling. So I tried making my own. It didn't work because the veneer that I had just wasn't that good. And there's a place out in Vancouver or Seattle which supply the purflings, and I contacted them, and for some reason they didn't ship me anything and I didn't hear back. So obviously it wasn't meant to be. So I decided, okay, as I challenged you before, please write me and tell me if you think I should put that all around here, and the consensus was no. And actually, to tell you the truth, I like this a whole lot better. I think that looks really neat. So I just think what we can do is just build a guitar and put it together. This was meant for me, and it was to be my last acoustic guitar. No, it is my last acoustic guitar. I'll do some electrics, but not like this anymore because of the hands. The hands are shaking worse than ever. I'll tell you about that in just a minute when we look at this thing. This is the pattern that I made that I tape to the top of the guitar, and it goes on there like that. The router comes around here and takes out a piece of the wood so that you can see where, in fact, it should be for putting in the Teflon and putting in those 2 little pieces of wood that I bend on this bender, and then I tape to here to give me the shape, so I don't have a lot to worry about in getting it to fit here perfect, because it does. It's the same shape as I just routed. So that worked fairly well, and I screwed it in. Now the idea of the screw is to force the 2 pieces of wood tight together so that it looks like one piece of purfling running all the way around here. That's the theory, and it works. However, on this guitar, it didn't. The wood broke. I had to find new wood. The problem is I only had a couple of pieces. I'm out of wood. And so I had to make do with something else, and I tried piecing it together, and I thought, I don't like that either. That doesn't look good. I'm not going to do that. So I ended up getting some more wood that was similar to this, and I put it in, and it matches pretty, not spot on, but very, very close. The veneer we made in a previous video, and I thinned that all down, and then I heated it on here. You'll see in in the pictures that I'm going to show you here how I have not only screwed the top in, taken the screws out, and then I take this, I put it into my vise here, and what happens is I end up taking the plane and the scraper and everything else, and I just take this edge off nice and neat. Well, I have, as you know, some flexible plywood that I use over the top of this to give me this shape that I want down in here. Well, for some reason, it wasn't deep enough into this section, and this on the top was too wide. So this is closer to a 45-degree angle than I would like, because I'd really like them rolling over the top. So this is not my best armrest, not by a long shot. I'm disappointed, but hey, that's what it is. With these hands that are constantly shaking worse every week, I have to be satisfied with this, because there are a lot of people that have problems worse than a tremor in their hands, and they would trade with me in a heartbeat. So I'm aware of that. Anyway, let's get back to this. So what's happened is I glued this on, and then you'll see how I put tape on it. I tape it with a 3M masking tape that stretches. So I double that tape up. So you take a piece of tape, I then take this, once I have cut this, and to cut this, you'll see in this picture where I've got the blue tape here. Look at this. So you see the blue tape. What I do then is I run a pencil around here and around here, and then I peel that off very carefully, lay it out on my workbench here, take a razor blade and cut it out. Now I have the shape of this armrest. But when I take it and I put it on the wood, I draw it exactly as I have it here, and then I cut it wider, because as you know, if you cut it and it's too small, you're done. She's over. So you got to cut it wide and then just gently bring it down so it will just fit nice and neat. Now, what you do is you plug in this. I bought this several years ago. It has been a real excellent tool for bending. It has the thermostat on the end. I got this, I believe, at Stumac, and it's just been Jim Dandy. I've burned my hand more on this than any other appliance that I've ever used in building guitars. I have a blister here that I broke last night, and it's feeling fine. I burned my fingers here, I burned it over here, burned my fingertips here, because when you're working on this thing and you're going like this, if you push just a little bit too hard, you end up snapping it, and you, oh yeah, that you know it. Trust me, you know it all right. So you have to use both ends, the wide end, the side, and the tip here. There's another piece that you can put on here to extend this if you want. I don't have one of those, but I'm going to make one to fit on there. So I bend the wood, and that's the two little pieces that you see there, plus the armrest. Now, because the armrest is going over like this, right? What I've done is I actually took it and I put it on this, on the vertical. So I had about an inch, and I just gently did this. That's how I burn my thumbs. And then I got just a little bit of a curve, like my hand is. This is accentuated, but like that. So then that comes down onto here. It fit very well. So then you put that stretchy, you glue it, of course. And I used, on this one, I used fish glue. I normally use Tight Bond, but anyway, I had the fish glue out, and fish glue is great stuff, so I used it. And I put it on, taped it down, and then you'll see I came out with surgical tubing. And so I wrapped the surgical tubing all around here to make sure I've got this thing tight everywhere. So I left that for 12, 14 hours, and then I take off the surgical tubing, and then I take a plane and a scraper, and I've got my scrapers here, Here they are here. This is a homemade scraper. This is a homemade scraper. This is a purchase scraper, and you need this one for doing some small little areas. And these two I sharpen on a regular basis, as I do this as well. And I make it so that I can just peel it right around and it comes off. Sounds great, doesn't it? I told you I wanted to put a hammer through this, so the binding broke. Yeah, it broke. So frustrating. Anyway, I used striped ebony initially. Now, you know ebony is black, but a striped ebony has brown wood coloring running through it, and it's really attractive. And so that's what I did here, and that's part of the armrest. So with that broken, that left me no option but to use some of the ebony that I have on hand. Have you ever worked with ebony? Oh, it's a terrible wood to work with. Your hands are black, it's dusty, it's awful. So this is all ebony. This is striped ebony here. This is black ebony here. What am I going to do? Do I care? No. Will it affect the sound of the guitar? No. Will it still make great music? I hope so. So this is the Australian Blackwood. I have not sanded or cleaned off anything. I am in the process of scraping this guitar in order to get this all nice and smooth. I also put a flat piece of metal up in here like this on an angle, straight up and down. I do it on this, and I do it this way because I want this area flat. And the reason I want it flat is because obviously the neck is going to fit in there, and I want it to be able to adjust that neck and have it fit here nice and tight. It should be just fine. I have sanded the top lightly with an initial sanding, and you'll see in the video here, you'll see the beginning of putting some shell around the tail wedge here. Well, everything went great until I got to this point here, and it totally messed up with my hands. And once it was, you know, with the contact cement or the crazy glue, once it was in and done, I'm done. So I've got to look at how I can fix that up and clean that up. I'll come up with some idea. Now what I want to know is, what do you think? Do I go back up into here and put a sound port in here? I would like to hear from you if you use the comment section down before and let me know, do we do this or do we not do this? I've been building guitars with the sound port because the guitar sounds louder, has more volume to it, and the guitar is incredibly light, so you don't need to have heavy strings on it in order to get good volume out of the guitar. Just saying. So let me know what you think. Use the comment section down below, and we'll do that. So this has all got to be cleaned up here yet, and then I have to do some little touch-up and filling. Well, when I sanded the top, as I told you, the guitar from the pit, one little piece, which would be not quite 1/8 of an inch, probably 3/32 of an inch of shell broke and popped out. Have you ever tried to make a piece that small? So I was very frustrated. I got my shell out and I started to work. So what I did is I took a piece of straight shell, put it in a pair of pliers at the end, held those, went to the disc sander and just started bumping on the disc sander. And then I dropped it off on the top of the guitar and looked at it. No, that's not enough. Ended up putting it again, taking it over to the sander until I got it. And then it fit right in there. And I made sure the glue was out of that little hole. And then I just carefully, using tweezers, put it into the hole. And then I flooded it with some CA glue from Starbond. And so the Starbond glue held that just beautifully, sanded it down, and it's perfect. But we still have a few little things I got to touch up as I run around the top of the guitar. Now the way I do that, of course, is I set it here. I'm going to do it this way, with this over here like this. This is my little bench here, and I can just do this up here. and I don't have to over tighten. That's not going anywhere. So this is how I sand out that curvature. And this is a piece of PVC pipe. This is a 1.5 inch pipe. This is the same thing, only I have wrapped this with, because it's soft, okay? So it's not going to score anything, like it won't damage. This is great for getting the rough part down so it's starting to smooth, but this is going to be really good for smoothing. And the way I made this, it's the same pipe as this. I wrapped paper towel around it, and then I covered it all with that green tape that I told you from 3M, and did a couple of rolls on that until I got it the way I want it. I then take the sandpaper, take it like that. Now I've got something round, and it will just fit in there and sand away, and it's all good. It's been really tough working on this guitar at this point. Then what happened is I decided my shellac is probably, my French polish is probably too old. So I made some new one. Now the ratio for making French polish is 8:1. So you've got 1 ounce of shellac flakes to 8 ounces of liquid. And you can use denatured alcohol. I use Everclear because it's available at the liquor stores throughout the United States, and I'll bring a bottle back with me when I'm south of the border, and I just stick it in my cabinet here, and then when I need it, I use it because it does a good job. So what happened, this was 8 ounces. This is all I have left, and this has been filtered about 6 times, and I can still see some impurities in there that have to come out. So that's got to be filtered again. I did this the other day, and this is getting pretty close to where I want. It's clear and it's nice and yellow, and it will be a nice blonde finish. So I wasn't sure about that, whether that was going to work. So last night I did another one, and that's this one here, and this is pretty clear. This is just inside some jars. This happens to be a soup jar from the local supermarket, and so I'll use that. And then you filter it, and you filter it into other empty cups. So what I use for filtering is the stuff you use every day. You coffee drinkers, I use a coffee filter. So I'll filter all of that through a coffee filter, which is very fine. And what it does is it picks up all the impurities, and I end up losing. This is more like the 8 ounces of liquid. This is down to about 3.5, 4 ounces. So once that's done, I'll filter all of that stuff again. And if you are really keen, you can filter it through charcoal, especially if you have a fish tank at home. You know, you use charcoal in the filter for a fish tank, and use some of the same charcoal. But I'm not a big fan on using charcoal because I've already experienced the cancer, and thank you, I don't want to go there again. And so I stay away from that kind of stuff. So that's where we're at, and that's where I've been at doing this. And it has taken me hours and hours. And when you do the armrest, just before you glue on that piece, and you find out the binding's not right or it breaks on you, you got to start all over again. You got to bend it and shape it and make it fit and get it in there, scrape it down to size. And it's been really, really a tough time. So we're past that now, and I'll be able to show you more of what's going on. We're coming to my favorite part, where we're going to build the neck, and I'm going to do the reverse truss rod, where you adjust it from the top of the peg head on the neck, instead of reaching through here where it's so difficult to get in through the holes there. So that's it. And at this point, I want to thank you for hanging in there. If you've stuck with me for the video today, thank you very much. And now it is a time for a wonderful shot of English breakfast tea. Now, I got to tell you, it's really good. Now, this Yeti cup with the lid on it that closes is my sippy cup. And the reason I have this as opposed to a nice porcelain china mug is because of my hands shaking. And it's just horrible. So there you go. It's time for me now to take this and say, all right, let's get upstairs, let's get this edited, and let's get it up so you know where I've been. And I haven't forgotten about you. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, I can understand why you might not want to, but put that aside and subscribe anyway. Hit the bell. You'll get notified if I put up, or when I put up another video. And I'm going to show you some other things about sharpening. I want to show you how to sharpen your chisels, and I've got several different ways of doing that, making chisels so razor sharp. And I'm going to talk about razor blades. I'm going to be talking about scalpels, not for cutting you, but for working on your guitar and how that will be an improvement for you. So tools are coming up on future episodes, and we'll try to get that in right away. So thank you. We'll see you in the next video.